Hello and welcome back to Stu Structures. We're here for video number 17 in the building of the freight house, so stay tuned. So welcome back. I am Mark Stewart and this is Stu Structures. Like I said in the intro, we're going to continue on with the freight house. You saw in the last video I had cut the board to mount it to. Before I can start building this diorama and mount the house down permanently though, I need to finish all those supports underneath both of the eaves because they're just going to be hard to get to once I mount this on a surface. So we need to get all that work done underneath of there, and then we can look at getting it mounted. There's a few other things we need to deal with. We need to continue on with putting the roofing on it. That's just going to be a slow process, but I'm going to do a little at a time as I'm working on other things as well. And I'm not sure, we'll just see what all we can get into in this video, so let's just jump into it. The first thing I want to come back and touch on, like I talked about, were these all these supports underneath the eaves of the roof. Now the arms, the angled arm that is upright, and the brace that comes down underneath that main rafter that I put underneath the eave, both pieces need to be put in place. And this, you can see the rafter I put in, I kind of left some areas white and not painted so I could glue those supports underneath. And with these arms already mounted to the wall, I just come back and cut all these supports. Then I put a couple of them into place to get the angles on both ends right, and cut all the angles and just let them run by that main support member just a little bit. But then I come back on both sides of the building and glue all these supports into place, and that'll be what holds up the main rafter out there that holds up the roof supports. And then all these little arms, remember I molded these some time ago, and they're not the cleanest. My molding skills are not the greatest in the world, but I come back with a file and clean up all the bad parts that are on there and make them look a little bit better than they did. And then I come back and glue all these into place on one side and then on the other side as well. And then once all those are in place, I just need to come back with some black paint and paint those two boards that I've added onto there, and come back and touch up paint everywhere else underneath the eaves. And that's everything I need to get to underneath the eaves. So that's now I can get this mounted on that board and not have to go up underneath there and do any other work at this point. So here's the basic drawing of how the building sets, and that piece of wood that I'm cutting to mount this on, this gives me an idea of how to lay all that out. And I look at several pictures that I have. I'd need to really go up there and take some better pictures of the overall site. I don't have a good picture of this end of the wall, the retaining wall that's behind the building, but you can see how it has this brick and mixed stone paving going down into it, and the wall is taller at the bridge end than it is out here at the driveway end, and it's all cut stone. So I showed this in the last video, but I took this piece of board that I had just scrap laying in the barn and cut this piece that will serve for the size for mounting all of it, and I draw lines to kind of lay everything out. Now I am cutting this opening in the bottom of it that's be inside of the building, so eventually I can come back and work inside of there if I need to. Now to get the terrain right on this, I'm just using this piece of scrap foam. Well, actually it's not scrap. This was the placeholder for the building on the layout when I made them originally. But I come back and just cut the rough pieces for the raise in the driveway coming down in, and a little raise between the drive behind the building and the retaining wall. So I have all the pieces cut at this point, and then I come back and just sculpt all those and glue them into place and give me a real rough basic shape of how the terrain is going to lay on this piece of wood. And then I come back with this plaster Paris and just mix it really thin to give myself some working time. I also use a little small piece of 4x4 wood as a curb behind the building and in front of the retaining wall. And that gives me a nice clean edge to work all this plaster down into as well. And then I just come through. Now, I've got to put the stone for paving and stuff on top of this. So I'm trying to create a nice, real smooth surface on this. Then I come back and look at the retaining wall itself. You can see the stones are basically cut level, but there is a top that's higher at the far end than the driveway end. You can see this concrete cap that's on top of it. At this period of time, it has these handrails and stuff on it. So to make the basic wall out of, I have this real thin piece of foam core board. And I'm just going to use this to cut the overall shape of the wall. So then I come back and figure out the heights according to the photographs and come back and cut this. Now I had to make it in two pieces here, as you can see, and I'm just going to attach these on the back side and glue them together. And then I come through and I look through all my boxes, and this isn't the right size of cut stone for that wall. But I felt like it was a really good representation. I've had this stuff forever, so I'm just going to come back and glue this to the face of the wall. And you can see some of the seams in it, but I'll deal with that a little later on. And I also found this real long piece of basswood that I can use for the cap on that and make it look like concrete. Now that this is getting to this point, I want to fix this building so that I can mount it. I could just glue the walls down to the wood, but I'd like to have just a little better adhesion on smaller areas. So I cut these small blocks and I just glue a few of those to the base of it inside, where I can adhere those down to the wood on the platform. And I'm just kind of setting all this in place right now. The wall I do have glued, and I have some weight on it holding it in place while it does glue in place. And I just set the wall in place, or the building in place. It's not glued yet, but it is where it will be on the platform. And this is just kind of an overall glimpse of everything at this point in time. Now you can see how the roadway comes down in. I probably could have extended this a little further to the right hand side here and made this more of a gradual thing, but it's actually pretty steep on the real one. Now the other thing we're going to have to do is put all this stone and brick and stuff in for the roadway coming down in. And you can see in this picture here that it's been redone a couple of times with different materials. The originals were brick-like shaped cobblestone, and then some bricks have been used over the years to redo some of it. And I don't want to go through the expense of adding plastic brick to all this or carving it. So what I came up with was this sheet of paper here, which is just made for crafts. And basically it's just a pigskin type of thing. But I think once I paint this, it's going to look like cobblestone. It's going to have a nice appearance to it and will work well for what I'm trying to do. So that's what we're going to use. So there you have another segment of Stu Structures. We're getting ready to put that diorama together pretty quick. I look for alternative sources for materials for building a lot of things. And, this paper that I'm going to use for the paving that comes down in there, there were several different patch jobs on all of this stonework that was used for paving coming down in there, and most of it is more brick shaped rather than a cobblestone type of shape of stuff. But there are three different types of material coming down in there, which I'm sure when it was originally built it was all one material. But I think this is a textured paper. And this just comes from a craft store, which it's used for scrapbooking or various craft projects. This particular one is made by the Paper Company, a company out of New Jersey, I believe. I can't hardly read it without my glasses on here. But basically it's called a franchise. It's a 1 foot by 1 foot square, and it's made to look like football skin. You know how the little texture is in football or pig skins. So I think once I paint this and do a little bit of washes and stuff on it, I think it's going to make a really nice surface. It'll look more like cobblestone than the large brick that was there. but I think it'll give a good impression of what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to go ahead and use this, but alternative sources really are a good thing. Just keep your eyes open every time you go into any store anywhere, because you can just find odd things and that you can adapt to model railroading that can save you tons of money. You know, plastics, a lot of things. If you buy things made for the hobby, they're twice as expensive as if you can find another source out there or something similar to it that you can use and get for a fraction of the cost. So, you know, I just don't have a lot of money to spend on all this. Most of you know some of my life story the last couple of years. Eventually maybe I can afford to do everything I want to do, but I try to do all this as inexpensively as I can. So stuff like this that I come across that I can get, you know, I mean, a 12 by 12 sheet of plastic or anything that mocks brick is going to be very, very expensive. And this was like $1.50 for this sheet. And actually I got it free because somebody was getting rid of some and I scarfed up about 5 sheets of this. But it's, you know, it's normally about $1.50 in a store. So in any case, appreciate you coming back and spending this time with me. We've got the freight house to the point now that we can start working on getting the walkways and docks and stuff on there for loading, unloading cars and loading vehicles as well. You know, we can work on some scenery as we go along with this. I haven't touched much on the roof yet. Well, I've still got to come back and put all the roof material on. It takes a lot of time to do that. So I've got to start getting some work done on that, but I can do that once it's mounted on this board easy enough. So once again, thanks for coming back and sharing this time with me. I do appreciate it, and stay tuned for the next segment of building the freight house. It's going to come together quick when we get started on some other projects. I already have some other things lined up. Like and share this. A lot of people out there don't know that, you know, these how-to type videos are out here and would like to know how to do some of this for their model railroads or, you know, model race cars or anything. Model military people do a lot of dioramas and stuff. So this can be used for a lot of different genres as far as modeling goes, and it applies the same to every scale and everything. It's just, you know, everything's slightly different in size, but the same techniques can be used for any scale. So in any case, I do appreciate you coming back. It's winter time. Grab some trains, build some buildings. Jump out there and try some of these techniques and build your craft. Make some unique structures that you could have for your model railroad that nobody else will have. And, you know, just enjoy your trains. Happy model railroading.